Welcome to the new episode of the Foreign Buckets podcast, hosted by your host with the most, Trip Overseas. Like I said, I try not to say something corny in the beginning like host with the most, but that's all I could come up with. It's been a minute since the last time we got to lock in. There's been a lot going on. Let me give you guys some quick updates, all right? I just found out that I'm on the top 5 hated media members by OKC Twitter. Here's how I found out, okay? I was just casually hanging out one day, and I'm in a group chat with all my college buddies, and one of my college buddies happens to be a coach at OKC. He sends me a text, or he puts in the group chat a text and, just laughing emojis, and I see people responding to it, so I'm like, all right, curiosity was piqued. What is in this text? So I go click on the text and it takes me to X. It's an X thread of none other than Chip Overseas, yours truly, it's me, on a podcast hosted by one of my other friends from high school. And I was just going in on OKC, right? But this is from like January. And I think the tweet was sent in like April, like right before playoffs, finals time. And it was just one of those like funny moments where like my worlds collide, right? My high school buddy, I'm on a podcast, I'm like talking crazy about OKC. And at the time, it was how I felt. And I told him, I was like, hey, OG, because he's one of my OGs in basketball. Like, he helped me out a lot. Like, this guy, he was a trainer, he was a player, and now he's a coach. Like, he is one of the best basketball minds. Like, there's no doubt that he's going to be an NBA head coach one day. But it was just funny because I was going in on his team, and I get it. Like, he has his loyalties to his team. I know how it is to be a part of a team. Obviously, I'm a pro player for 9 years. When you're on the team, you feel like, everybody's won and you love everybody. And then it's like, as soon as you leave the team, that dynamic immediately changes. But all things considered, I totally understand why that was. And so OKC Twitter had made a list of all the players that now that the Thunder had won the championship, here's all the people that can suck it, right? And of course, it was like Doris Burke and Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith. And then I was in between Stephen A. and Gilbert Arenas. So for me, it's dope to be considered with, such like well-known people within media. Not necessarily for the right reason, not necessarily what I want to be known for. However, I'll take it. And, my name was also in a little bit of internet controversy, not real controversy. Like, I'm not harming anybody. But I got into some mess since the last time we spoke online, and, the podcast is where you address it. I made a video about Kiyan Anthony. He put out a training video, Instagram highlight video, one of these training videos where the kid is doing like crazy combination dribbles and step back threes from 50 feet, all that type of stuff. And it was with an NBA trainer. And with the trainer, I just saw that the trainer was doing workouts with Kiyan that I think he does with his NBA clientele, not necessarily like tailoring it to Kiyan's game that he's going to be playing in college. And I voiced that in the video, saying that, I think you should train for the level that you're at, because if you're not a top 1% athlete, like physically, like a Zach LaVine or a Scotty Barnes type player, you have to kill it in college. Like PGs, shooting guards, they go to college and you better smash it, bro. You better average 25. You better average 15. You better average, you have to shoot at a high clip, because if not, you may stay in college. So I said that in the video, went viral, millions of views. Everybody's like, hey man, what are you doing? Kiyan is going to be just like his daddy. How dare you disrespect the Anthony family? And what I realized was Carmelo has like a cult-like following that I didn't necessarily account for when I made the video. And I think me criticizing the training video, not criticizing his game, not criticizing Kiyan as a human being, me criticizing the training video, I think it really struck a nerve with like Carmelo Anthony, his hive, the Melo hive. no disrespect to the Melo Hive, they got on me heavy about that. And Carmelo himself actually responded to the tweet. Responded to the Instagram video. I'll link that here so you guys can see. He had a very respectful answer amidst a lot of disrespect. Like, guys was calling me crazy. Terrell Owens jumped in the comments. I had the ratio Terrell Owens. And I was like, dang, it hurts when you got to do it to somebody you respect. But at the same time, it's my comment section. I'm not going to get bullied out my own comment section. That's one way I was raised growing up in a Jamaican household. You don't let nobody bully you off of your yard or off of your, wherever your property is. In real life, it's your actual yard, but in internet land, it's your IP. So nobody's going to bully me off of my IP. I don't care who it is. Also, I threw a pop-up event, Chip Overseas Pop-Up NYC 2025, geared towards players that were unsigned and trying to get back overseas. Great event. I'll post pictures from it here, and if you guys want to follow it on social media, I'm gonna do a whole rollout of how the event went, who's getting signed, where they're gonna go, and it's gonna build into something big. But at the moment, yeah, we're early stages. First iteration of the pop-up 2025. I think I'm gonna do 2 more for the year, but that's all the boring stuff. I got you guys all caught up. Now let's get into what I want to get into. All right. Starting off hot, Steve Ballmer. Allegedly, he's in the news now. He's obviously, you guys know, he's the CEO of Microsoft. He's also the owner of the LA Clippers. He's also one of the richest people in the world. Not in NBA world, like the world. And Steve Ballmer is in the news because allegedly he created a illegitimate company, I'll say, where he had funds available for Kawhi Leonard. And it was allegedly created, this company, in order to kind of find a loophole around the salary cap, right? Because obviously the NBA has a salary cap. One of the reasons why the NBA has a salary cap is because some of the owners are extremely rich, right? You got some owners that are rich, and you got other owners that are rich. And it kind of got me thinking about overseas a little bit, because overseas, it's kind of like the same setup. You have some owners that really have a lot of money. And then you have some owners that, they got money, but in a lot of leagues overseas, it's not regulated. How much money can one team raise? You have a rich owner. Does he have rich friends? Do you live in a city that gives a lot of money to basketball, right? I've played in smaller cities overseas where the town didn't really have anything else to like donate the money to. So a lot of the funds from the town, like they're like these, funds that they have for sports or whatever, it goes directly to the basketball team. And even though the owner wasn't so rich, they were able to pay some decent money and guaranteed contracts and all that stuff. And then I was just thinking about some of the owners that are extremely rich and how, they feel, not saying that Steve Ballmer feels like this, but it had my mind thinking sometimes they feel like they're above the law, right? Like I've been on situations where, and I said it on this channel before, where I got paid whenever the owner felt like paying me. There was no, I signed to get paid on the 1st or the 4th or whatever the date was. I don't remember now. But that money will come whenever he feels like it. Because he's the richest guy in the city, and he is used to calling the shots. I've been in situations where it got so bad that he was employing a lot of other people. And those people in different industries, not just the basketball players, those people in the different industries were also on a holdout. And they were also contemplating not coming to work because they hadn't been paid in a couple months because, hey, man, I don't feel like paying you guys. You guys aren't doing what I want you to do. I don't know what his reason for not paying us was, but, you see that a lot. Some rich owners, they don't necessarily, especially overseas, they don't necessarily acquire their wealth in the most positive ways. Like, let's just call a spade, right? I've heard of stories. Luckily, this never happened to me, but I've heard of stories in, all right, I'll say what country? Greece. Greece is known for Beautiful country. And I would never say anything to disrespect the people of Greece. Nothing but respect for the Greek nationals. Nothing but respect for the Greek basketball. They really know hoops. But you hear some crazy stories out of Greece top division, man. I don't know what it's like in the second division, but everything I've heard from the top division, I've heard of, cash payments in sporadic installments. Meaning you go to the locker room one day and you got a duffel bag in front of your locker, straight cash. How are you going to bust that down? How are you going to claim that on your taxes? How are you going to do? They don't care. They're dropping that money off. Guess what? It's time to get paid now. And, this might be payment for the next 2 months. So there might be a lump sum of cash because sometimes they'll sign you to big contracts. Whether you get paid everything that you're owed is one thing, right? That's one thing, because I know this happens to us, a lot of young players coming out of the NCAA, big time D1 players, high scoring mid-major players. You see this happen to them where, you signed to my club first year out, we'll give you $6K a month. And $6K a month overseas is like really good. That's a really good contract, especially for a rookie. Most rookies ain't making $6K a month. Yeah, we'll sign you for $6K a month. You scored 20. You scored 20 in mid-major D1, NCAA D1. Okay, $6K. Boom. Sign it. They fly you over. They'll give you a little pocket money when you get there, but you ain't getting no $6K a month. Oh yeah, we had money issues. The team filed bankruptcy, but we still have a game tomorrow. But what happened to the $6K a month? Oh yeah. You'll get it. You'll get it. Let's just play tomorrow. We'll see how tomorrow goes. Just focus on the game. Trust me, everything's good. Focus on the game. You'll get your money. Go in the game. They thought you was a 20-point scorer. You only had 10, 8. After that, nobody talked to you after the game. You sitting there looking like they make you think like you going crazy. Am I going crazy, or has nobody said anything to me since the game ended? I signed for $6K. The end of the month comes. Yeah, we decided to cut the contract, so you didn't get a dime. All you got was a little advance money. You didn't get a dime. I've seen these stories. Like just because you signed for a contract, just because you signed for a number, doesn't mean that you're getting that. Like, that's not how it works overseas. So, especially in certain markets and other markets, guaranteed contracts. And those are the markets that's the hardest to get into. France is one of those markets, hard to get into, but once you're in, buddy, you're in, right? Asia, heard the same thing. Heard guys, high major guys, like with the NBA tag, come over for their first time. Asian markets, $300K, $200K contracts, come in. Wasn't the player that we thought. Yeah, he looked okay, but we thought he was like NBA good. We thought he was going to come over here and be Stephon Marbury good, So that's how it works, man. And Steve Ballmer is just one of those guys. What are you going to say to Steve Ballmer, man? Well, like, honestly, what is the NBA going to say to Steve Ballmer? Like, he's the 6th richest man in the world. I love the NBA. I've been watching the NBA since I was probably 10 years old. There's nothing they can say to him, man. Let's move on. There's nothing I can say either, so I'm going to move on. Bill Simmons, who I'm a huge fan of. Bill Simmons, and I'm just going to go over this because I've done this on a previous video on this page. So if you hadn't seen it, go check it out right now. Bill Simmons, he was quoted saying that the NBA may be interested in buying the EuroLeague. And when a guy like Bill Simmons says a statement like that, you have to pay attention because Bill's an insider. He's honestly a basketball insider. He's never speaking from opinion, or he's never speaking from, in theory, this makes sense in my head, but like, he knows things. And I want you guys to think about what the EuroLeague can become if the NBA was to step in with ownership. Because I look at the EuroLeague like, the Europeans look at the EuroLeague like it's a pure product, right? The Europeans, like, that's not stepped on. You guys seen Amon St. Ra's dad talk about interracial marriages and how you can't step on it twice? Europeans see European basketball as it's not stepped on. They look at the NBA as an entertainment product. That's something that you watch if you're, you know, if you have some money. It's nice to go to a game. It's a spectacle. You know, they got halftime shows. You got superstars coming to perform at the game. But they look at their European basketball as untainted. So it'd be interesting to see how the European fans, right? Because a lot of Americans aren't fans of the European game. So it'd be interested if the NBA was to step in with ownership, what that may look like. And just kind of building off of what I was saying about the owners and how the owners of the overseas teams call the shots, and like it's almost like the richer you are, the more status you have within the league, and obviously you're going to have the better players because there's no salary cap overseas. But another element of that is a lot of times, man, it's so funny because the rich owners in a lot of markets, they would be like, they only buy the team, and maybe it's like this in the NBA as well. It could be like this in the NBA too. But they only buy the team to look cool in front of their friends. And so it's always funny when you see like these owners, because you can pick it away, like you can pick it off from a mile away. As soon as you meet the owner, you know his intentions immediately. He got that twinkle in his eye, and whenever, you know, all the guys come around, he puffs his chest out and makes big speeches. And man, I had an owner that he'd throw these parties, invite the players to these parties, which is fine. Like, you know, he'd do like, you know, before the season, and all the players would come to his restaurant that he owned. And at the restaurant gathering, like preseason soiree, he'd grab the microphone and he'd be singing. And then everybody's like, because he's the richest man, and like you could tell he's loving it that the players have to be there, like clapping him on because he's head honcho, right? And also, like, he was super tapped in with the people in the city, and like he'd come to like house parties that we'd go to as players, because if my players are there, I have to be there, right? My players are talking to these girls, I have to talk to them too, just so I can see what's going on and I can spin my own narratives. And like he was just so attached to the players. It's like he wanted to be us. But then when we were around each other, like he wanted everybody to know, like, these are my players. And it's so funny because a lot of them have that complex. And from a player's perspective, like I said, you see it from a mile away, and you just kind of play into it because like, at the end of the day, he cuts the check. He decides if you get a raise next year. So what are you going to say? You don't call him corny? Can't do that. Play along with it, man. Yeah, it's a nice party. Yeah. Clap it up for him. Like, man, I've seen some crazy things. How do you keep a job overseas? Getting over there is just the first step. It's just like any other job. If you perform well, then, you know, or if you're liked, then you'll keep getting contracts. That's how it is overseas. I've seen people keep jobs based on their political stuff more than their actual game. Like, for example, all my friends, like let's say when I played in France, all my friends that actually spoke French, like the American guys that spoke French, automatic team favorite. Automatic. If you're an American learning a secondary language, because they know us over there, they know that we don't really do that. Some French people might say, oh, how come we have to learn English, but you don't have to learn French? English is a universal language. English is not an American language. It's universal, right? But typically, languages like French, that's only, you know, a small part of the country uses that as a main form of communication. So anyways, the guys that go over there and learn the culture and participate in the culture. I had a conversation with a guy that was a pretty big college basketball player. We spoke 2 or 3 days ago. I'm not going to say his name, but he's like, yo, Chip, you know, you glorify European stuff, and like, I know people like you that glorify European stuff, and, you know, I was never like that. You know, my career halted. My career wasn't as good as it could have been overseas because I didn't respect European hoops. And like he wore it as like a badge of honor. And meanwhile, even though I didn't really agree with the stuff that he was saying, I understood where he was coming from because he kind of thought like I thought when I was like 21 years old. You know, he's older than me. So, you know, he's got his own stuff he got to work on, but as far as like that mentality, a lot of Americans like keep that mentality. So when you do go over there and you don't have that mentality, you have the complete opposite mentality, it's easier for you to stand out. It's easy for you to stand out when you're around a bunch of dudes like that. So those guys, man, it's like, you know, you can play the long game. He said it himself. I didn't get the contracts that I should have got because I was not respecting their hoops. I was not respecting. If you don't respect their hoops, you probably don't respect their way of living. If you don't respect their way of living, it shows through the little things. People know when you don't like them. People know when you don't respect them. So if you go over there with just a level head, man, just be a normal guy. Like the Europeans, they use that word a lot. Is he normal? Is he a normal guy or is he crazy? Because I think that they think that most Americans are crazy because a lot of American basketball players were like conditioned to just think that our way is the optimal way, which I mean, depending on how you look at it, some people can say that's true. Some people can say that that's true because we dominate the game. But I see the writing on the wall. And this is what I said to the college player. I said, bro, we barely beat France in the semis. Oh, sorry, the championship. We barely beat Serbia in the quarterfinals. Like, we're not just like blowing teams out. This ain't 1996 anymore, bro. Look around. He's like, no, man, America, we got the talent, bro. We got the talent. I was like, yeah, we got the numbers because we're such a big country, so there's so many of us. America is about the size of Europe, the continent, right? And it's just one of those things, man. It's just one of those things. Like, you know, I think the reason why a lot of my stuff works well on social media is because a lot of Americans are like so into American basketball. They're like it's like stan culture. Like, you don't find a lot of fans of American basketball. You find stans. It's like back to the Carmelo Anthony topic. They thought I was attacking Carmelo because they're stans of him. Like, they're invested in his personal life. They're invested in what he drinks when he wakes up, his first meal. They're invested in like the smallest details, like all the things that don't have to do with his game. And then you ask him, well, what do you think about his game? And they're like, oh yeah, he's the best scorer of all time. It's like, well, no, he wasn't. You know, he was actually quite inefficient, but he played like how a lot of us played when we were growing up. So we idolize it, right? We put it on this extreme pedestal, and you know that's the mentality here. You know, that's the mentality here. There's a lot of guys that's coming from the NBA going overseas at the moment, and one guy in particular, Isaiah Thomas, he was working out with somebody, and he was at Panathinaikos, the gym, one of the biggest gyms or biggest organizations in Europe, and it's a Greek club. I may actually be going to their derby game, which that'll be dope for the podcast, for the channel, not just a podcast, but the Panathinaikos versus Olympiakos Greek derby game, and then there's a Red Star versus Belgrade, the Serbian derby game. So those two, I'm in contact with the EuroLeague social team. I'm going to be going to one of those two, maybe both. You know, I think it'd be dope if I went back to Serbia because obviously I have the Serbian roots. Some people really love me in Serbia, believe it or not. You know, they call me Dwayne-chich. But anyway, Isaiah Thomas, the younger Isaiah Thomas, was at Panathinaikos, and they asked him, "Was like, hey man, what do you think about the scene overseas? Like, basketball here is a rich culture. What do you think? What impression do you get?" And he's like, "Man, I would love to play over here. I would love to play in the EuroLeague." And I was thinking, I'm like, IT, man. IT was such a good hooper. Like, his prime years with the Celtics was phenomenal. and he was just like electric, right? Fourth in MVP voting at 5'9". That's ridiculous. But that EuroLeague bump is different. It's a different bump. Let me explain. At the tail end of your career, if you're a high usage with a great reputation PG, you're going to get opportunities to kind of play at your pace. You're not going to be asked to do a whole lot. I think Chris Paul's not asked to do a whole lot on defense, right? So that way on offense, he can coast a little bit, play at his pace, slow down the tempo. In the EuroLeague, the game is much faster, right? The quarters are 10 minutes, not 12 minutes. The court is a little bit smaller. That matters. It shrinks the game. It shrinks like everything. There's not as much spacing. Guards are picking you up 94 feet. Remember when Kemba Walker came to Monaco and everybody made a big deal? Yo, yeah, Kemba Walker's here. Welcome to the EuroLeague, Kemba Walker. And Kemba Walker came in. You can kind of see it in his face. He had like this chill demeanor, like he always does. It's like, he's Kemba Walker at the end of the day. Kemba Walker is a basketball icon in America, just based on what he did at UConn alone. And then he did the same thing in the NBA, so he got a lot of respect. So I could see that he walked over there thinking, yeah, man, I'm Kemba Walker, bro. Like, I'm Kemba Walker. When he came in, he looked like he was a gear slower than everybody else. And that's only because the EuroLeague is like full on, 100%, every single possession, no possessions off, no wasted seconds in the shot clock period. Like, everything is just 94 feet. They're switching hard. Like, there's no breaks. Not saying that these guys can't play in there, but your mind has to be right and your body has to be right. Kemba was over here on one leg. Isaiah Thomas struggled a lot with his health. He's not the biggest guard. He's got a really good shot, so that's going to help him. Like, he's a pure shooter. But it'd be tough to play in the EuroLeague for IT at, 37? Battling injuries. So, yeah. I don't know about that. But besides IT, guys from the NBA, 20-year-olds, that's the most important part.